So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So today we have Jagan, uh, who is uh, who is having around 30 years of experience, and he brings a rare blend of technical depth and human-centered wisdom. From startups to global MNCs, his journey has been about building high-performance teams, driving transformations, and enabling leaders to thrive amidst change. As an ICF ACC coach, Jagan works with clients across USA, Europe, Middle East, and India, empowering leaders from students to CXOs to achieve authentic growth and meaningful impact. Jagan is among top 0.1% and top 50 leadership coaches. And in today's session, he is going to explore how resilience, not power or position, is becoming the defining currency of leadership in today's rapidly changing world. So, in today's session, we are looking in for how to turn adversity into strength, building emotional agility, leading teams through uncertainty, and nurturing resilience as a daily practice. So, I think today's session is going to be a kind of insightful session and a new concept that Jagan brings up, which is called bamboo leadership. So, Jagan, we are excited to hear more about bamboo leadership, and over to you. Thank you for accepting our invite to be a speaker with us today.
Thank you so much, Varundeep, and appreciate the opportunity to present to a lot of accomplished leaders here. Happy to or rather, I would say, thanks to all of you for making the evening and making yourselves available on a Thursday evening. So let's get started. Quick check, you're all able to see my slides, right?
All of you can type in chat. Yeah, Jagan, we can start. They are able to see.
Okay, so let's get started. I would like to start with a story. I call this the story of three siblings. If you can all see this graph, I want you to take a few minutes and reflect on what is this chart, what's the story here? And I would like to see if possible people can talk instead of chatting. So if you can please unmute as required, Varundeep, that will be great, so that it's more interactive and just not resorting to chat because it's also a distraction. If you can unmute and tell me what's the story here.
Yeah, anybody who wants me to unmute them, they can raise their hands and I can quickly unmute. Maybe rest can use the chat, but who's okay to speak can raise the hand and I can unmute. Okay, maybe if you are not comfortable speaking, maybe you can use the chat and tell like, okay, career journey, Krishna says.
I'm not able to see the chat here. Let me see what am I missing here. I can only see my face. I can't see the chat.
Okay. So Krishna Kumar says career journey.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good attempt. What else? Okay. Now I can see the chat. Ups and downs in the journey. Okay. It means we are not dead. I like that. Absolutely. That's a good one. Sales and profits. All right. Profitability. Okay. Remember, this was the story of three siblings. These are not three organizations. Anything else? Wealth. Okay. Wealth, health. Okay. That's a good one. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So I think we have enough things in the chat. Interestingly, this is the story of my life. All right. And the three graphs here are career, health, and my relationships. And if you see here, none of these aspects of life are a straight line. Never ever is it a straight line, always trending upwards. So on the career, you will see, several dips, significant dips, Towards the tail end of my career, I did have a 2-year stint as a CTO. But my career journey was not without its share of setbacks, serious setbacks. You'll see like serious growth and serious dips. Similarly, on the health side, it has been broadly okay, but then I did have a lot of health scares. The most recent one being after I became a CTO, I was diagnosed with brain tumor, and I still live with one. Right, so doesn't make me any less resilient than what I was before that. But that is life. Similarly, on relationships as well. And like they say, whenever a wheel goes up, the wheel will come down, right? So now it seems to be all upward, and I'm ready for a downward curve as well, right? And that's what resilience is all about. Which brings me to why we are here. I call it the art of bouncing forward. Normally, you hear people saying, I want to bounce back, but I think bouncing back is still not great. Bouncing forward is great. And what we are going to talk about here is bamboo leadership. And I'm sure all of you can relate to why it is called bamboo leadership. Bamboo is one of the most, I would say, resilient plants out there. It always bends, it always yields to all the winds and everything, and just sways in the breeze, sways in the wind, and yet it survives. And that's the reason I wanted to call it bamboo leadership, because that's exactly what we need to do as leaders. All right, I am going to again have you ask a question of all of you. When do you think resilience is most tested? Again, you can unmute or you can put it on chat. In our most difficult times, okay? During failures, absolutely. Nice. Tough times, difficult times, crisis, okay? Fabulous. I think all of you hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly how resilience is tested, right? It's tested when unanticipated negative situations happen, right? It has to be unanticipated and it has to be negative. Rarely ever positive things test your resilience, right? Now here is the thing. What do you make of this picture? Can you see the picture? I'm hoping you can all see it.
The picture is visible.
Forest fire, okay. Only resilience will survive, exactly. Ups and downs. That's a good one, Krishna Kumar. Life cycle of tree and forest. Okay, interesting. Okay, so let's go back to the picture. This is exactly, you actually see a bamboo grove here, right? Which is thriving and surviving, and you see fallen trees everywhere. This is exactly a replica, or very indicative of the VUCA world that we live in, isn't it? I'm sure all of you are CIOs and senior leaders. You all know what is VUCA, right? So the VUCA world is pretty much like this, right? The volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity just leaves you like a storm in a forest. And amidst the VUCA world, what is required is very deep roots and flexible stems. And with that, a strength that flows. This is exactly what we are going to talk about today in bamboo leadership. What does deep roots mean? What does flexible stems mean? And how do you build that strength that flows through the VUCA world? All right. So next, I want all of you to have your mobiles ready. We're going to take a small survey. You can scan this QR code, and I'm going to share my Mentimeter. So I want you to all of you to reflect on what are the barriers for being resilient, right? Whatever comes to your mind. So let me Let me reshare and bring out the Mentimeter here. And as soon as you log in, you'll be able to type in. So feel free to go ahead and type in. Where is my Mentimeter? There you go. Are you able to log in, Varundeep and others?
Yeah, I have been.
Okay.
I think you can share the code in the chat because some people might be on phones and they may not be able to.
Sure. The Mentimeter code is 2870.
Yeah, I will type in 2870
0 triple two.
2. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can, all of you can go to menti.com.
I think I'm already seeing people typing it in
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So those who have not been able to, they can go to menti.com and type in the code 2870022 and answer.
Low self-confidence, environment. I'm assuming that's ego, fear, doubt, uncertainty. Okay. There is one key aspect for why we are not resilient, and I'm still waiting to see whether that comes up. Okay. Fear is by far the bigger one here. Stigma. Okay. Takes courage, mindset, fear of failure. Okay. We'll probably give it a couple of minutes and then we'll switch back to the slides. Keep typing. Past trauma. Okay. Interesting. Uncertainty, unhealthy, self doubt. That's a good one. Negative mindset, association. I'm assuming association with kind of people. I'm assuming that's what it meant. Mental strength lowest. Okay. Uncertainty, mindset, fear of failure. They seem to be the bigger one, right? Okay. I'm still not seeing one of the biggest problems that we have with resilience. Okay, keep going. Happy being in comfort zone. Okay. Weak hearted. All right. Skill gap. Okay. Change aversion. Absorbing new things. All right. I think we have a pretty large word cloud here. Okay. Keep going. Love this interaction. Low self confidence. Habits. That's a good one. Anxiety. Self doubt. Resisting change. All right. So I think the workload stabilized now. So let me switch back and switch back to my presentation. Give me a second. Are you able to see my slide deck, Varundeep?
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah, Jagan, it is visible.
Visible, right? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right. So these are I think some of you caught a few of them here. One of the biggest barriers for resilience is the victim mindset. Okay. What we mean by the victim mindset is, there's always this question that comes up: Why me? Why did it happen to me? Right? If it's a very common thing that you're diagnosed with a health problem or something like that, right? And the doctor comes and tells you, hey, this happens to one in a million people, right? And you say, why me? Why did I not get the lottery? But why did I get the disease, right? So the victim mindset is one of the main reasons why people crumble, right? There are a few other big ones. The ones that I've called out in red are by far the bigger ones. Self-doubt, I think all of you hit the nail on the head there. And the other thing is no gratitude for what blessings you have in life. When you don't have a gratitude and you couple it with victim mindset, that's like a deadly combination, right? Just pulls you down and just crumbles you like in no time. And then there are a few other things, inflexible, you're not able to flow with what is happening. And another thing that, starts with pessimism and it ends up being paranoia, right? You always look at the negative side of things and then you stretch it to extremes, it become paranoia, right? Where you're always constantly living in fear of what could go wrong, what could go wrong. You are never able to see the positive side of life. And one of the things which also leads to a victim mindset is comparison. Why did I get dinked in my career? And somebody who joined with me in a career when I started off my career, he is in a very very big position, and why me? And I want to actually call out one of my clients here. I won't give the name, but he had actually told me a very interesting thing, apparently from one of his mentors, who actually told him, instead of saying why me, why don't you just tell nature try me, right? And that's a very interesting way to look at it, right? Instead of saying why me, try me. So put whatever you want, whatever the universe tries to throw at you, just take it in your stride. So these are all. This is not again a very comprehensive list. Again, the word cloud had a lot of things, but by far these are the biggest things that I have observed, which causes you not to be resilient. So basically, what happens is that resilience does not make you crumble overnight. It erodes like parasites or insects eating away at the roots of a plant. It just quietly erodes you, and through all these patterns of thought, it erodes you to such an extent that there is no coming back. So it's like a point of no return, right? And that's one of the reasons why in this VUCA world, in fact, I was reading a financial report yesterday, and it said in the world of AI where disruption is so fast, uh, lack of resilience is making leaders very vulnerable. It was actually a financial report, but interestingly, it talked about it yesterday, and I was thinking, okay, that's a pretty good alignment to what we are going to talk about today. Any questions so far? Anything that people want to chime in so far before we actually get into the next part of the presentation? Feel free to type in or talk. Any reflections so far? Okay. So I don't see anything on chat either. So let's flip back. So what we are going to talk about today is basically a framework which helps you become resilient. And I call it the layers of resilience. So resilience is not just personal, right? You just have to be resilient on 4 dimensions here. And you can almost visualize this like the core of the bamboo, right? The stem of the bamboo, and when you peel it off, you actually look at it like this. The innermost core is personal resilience, and without personal resilience, any of the outer cores are immaterial, right? It will just not be relevant at all. And you start off by having a very strong personal core, personally very resilient, and then you start to radiate outwards. So the personal resilience basically, is what fuels leadership strength. All of you are leaders in your own right, and if you don't display that personal resilience within you, it will just show, right, in the way you interact with your leaders, in the way you interact with management, in the way you interact with your teams, and you will just come across as somebody who is not strong inward, right? You don't have that inner strength. So personal resilience is almost like the fuel for you to actually drive forward. And once you have a very strong core, the next thing is obviously most of our working lives, I would say, most of our lives are spent in some form of a career, or some form of a career. So you have to learn to be having a lot of career resilience. And oftentimes, as part of my coaching practice, I have nearly about 40% of my clients come to me for resilience coaching. And I find that many of them actually struggle to see how they can stay afloat in their career. And oftentimes, because a career is like a big part of somebody's life, when somebody loses a job or kind of, they're not able to figure out what they are doing in their career, it's almost like they lose their identity, right? It's like it leads to an identity crisis. So, and in the current times where disruption is on a daily basis, it's even more relevant to find out, how you can keep yourself very resilient from a career perspective. And then once you do all of this, all of you being leaders, you have a huge responsibility in terms of how to drive your organization forward. And organization basically, you have to develop organization resilience as well, which is what makes your company survive tough times. And obviously, if your company isn't there, you don't have a job, right? So as leaders, it's your responsibility to keep the organization resilient as well. And beyond all this is something that people usually don't talk about, which is societal resilience. And this is what leads to legacy, leads to leaving a legacy for the next generations, right? So there is a societal resilience also that you will have to build. That's the outermost layer of the bamboo, if I have to call it. So what we are going to talk about is we'll talk about all these four aspects, and we'll talk about mental models that you can actually use to manage each layer of this bamboo. So we'll start with personal resilience. Personal resilience leads to what I call an enduring being. You are basically a being who will just endure, right? Who will endure. And I remember, one of you mentioned in one of the first chat windows that the graph shows that we are alive, right? And as long as you're alive, you can just be an enduring being. And like the bamboo's roots, which are not seen, but which is what makes the bamboo stand strong, this represents your inner stability. And if you're stable inside, the strength will be very visible on the outside, right? The way you talk, the way you communicate, the way you show courage in the face of adversity, that'll all show up because your inner roots are so strong. And if you go back to the VUCA picture we talked about, this is what makes the bamboo survive the storm, right? Because it has got very strong inner roots. So, what is a mental model we can use for personal resilience? I call it the PARAG resilience loop. PARAG, and we will blow it out to what it stands for. And interestingly, I came across when I thought of this mental model, I also found out that this actually in Sanskrit it actually means pollen, and pollen is basically the, I would say, it symbolizes creation, right? Because with pollen is how pollination happens and leads to a flower and a fruit and so on and so forth, right? And in a sense, Parag also represents, if you're a resilient, enduring human being, you're pretty much, you're kind of creating a new life for yourself. You are like a new you, right? And there's a store called New You. And this is basically you're reinventing yourself. You're creating a new version of yourself. And so it's almost like a promise of new life. So I thought it aligns pretty well. What does Parag stand for? This is a very fundamental concept which will also extend to all the other career resilience, org resilience, societal resilience as well. This is like the underpinning of how you develop resilience as a mindset. Whenever something happens, and like all of you rightly pointed out, resilience is tested during tough times when you actually hit negative situations, which you never predicted. Whenever something hits you, the first thing, very impulsively we try to react to it. But Parag actually forces you as a mental model to first pause and see what happened to you, right? Kind of, you really abstract yourself out and look at yourself from a bird's eye perspective. And you say pause and find out, okay, what actually happened to me? You're not going to ask why it happened to me, right? Why is going to just suck you into a victim mindset. You're going to basically pause and find out what happened to me, what just hit me. And then you get to the next stage, which is accept. When it hit you, you just accept it, right? And there are a lot of things that you can do to develop that mindset. One of the key ways that you can develop an acceptance mentality is to actually do gratitude journaling, right? When you start to do gratitude journaling, you start to accept it, because and you will start to see the blessings that you have in your life, or your career, or your organization, right? And once you accept, this is probably the biggest thing that biggest pillar of the Parag loop. Accept is the biggest pillar of the loop. Then you start to reframe. You start to look at the adversity as an opportunity. Like what they say, right? You just convert a challenge into an opportunity, right? You start to reframe it and see, okay, what is this giving you? So just to kind of give you a personal example here, that kind of relating back to what I talked about. When I got hit with this, with the brain tumor, uh, I went into this accept mode and started to reframe it, saying, what is this telling me, and how can it actually, help me repivot my life? And that was one of the main reasons why I actually gave up my corporate life and took to coaching, because I said, okay, time for me to switch to something more fulfilling. I've been in the corporate life for 30 years, reached where I wanted to. And now let me put a full stop to it and do something that helps me find meaning to life and helps others find meaning to their lives. And for the last 15 months, this has been extremely fulfilling for me, doing coaching and seeing how much of impact I could create in people's lives. And reframing that perspective was a big shift in my mindset. And of course, act is basically what I did. Once I reframed my perspectives, I said, okay, let me act. I said, okay, took me courage to actually put down my resignation and consciously decide to retire from corporate life. And that is part of the growth cycle, right? And you grow, you learn from the experience. And like I said, be ready for the next downturn. It's not like life will always be up. There can be a surprise that life throws at you. Be ready to pause, accept, go through the loop again. So I'll pause here and see, how people relate to this. Happy to see any comments on chat, uh, and uh, and then we'll move on to the next layer of the bamboo. Yeah, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Absolutely, upbringing plays an important role in this. Absolutely, very nice. Any other perspectives? What does How does Parag resonate with you? Okay, I'll probably wait another 30 seconds for any comments. Otherwise, we'll move forward to the next layer. Taking a step back to pause is a problem today. Yeah, absolutely. It requires, I would say, thinking slow, because we are always in a hurry, right? We never stop to pause. That's the reason why that is the first thing in the loop. Absolutely, it is a problem. One must prepare themselves to face the ups and downs of life. Yes, absolutely. I thought everyone has faced their life. Okay, I don't know what that meant, but I'm assuming people have faced tough things in their life, is what Prashant meant. Reframing is difficult, yes, because reframing is difficult because it requires a lot of courage to look at a challenge as an opportunity. But once you start doing that, and we will come to that, we will come to see how you can actually institutionalize this in your daily life, right? And when you start doing it, it's a very powerful construct. All right, let's go to the next layer of the bamboo. So this is a question you need to ask yourself, right? What inner roots are sustaining you today when there's a storm coming your way? What is helping you stay grounded? All of you should reflect on this question and kind of, make it as a mental note. Something is probably working for all of you because you all come this far in your career and you're continuing to lead your organizations. So obviously you are doing something right. There is an opportunity to get better, but ask yourself that question: what is holding you grounded? What is giving you this inner strength? That will be a very powerful thing that you can also share with your teams as well. Now let's move to the next layer of the bamboo, which is career resilience. What does career resilience help you do? Your personal resilience made you an enduring being. Your career resilience is going to keep you relevant forever. It's almost like the bamboo stem, because of its flexibility and flow, it just keeps enduring, right? It just keeps lasting. It just has more offshoots, becomes a grove, becomes a bamboo forest, and it keeps surviving, right? Storm after storm, it just keeps on growing. So similar to this, you got to have your career be relevant forever. As long as you're relevant in your career, you will find a job. You will be employable, right? What is the nature of the job is debatable, but you will have a job. Somebody will find value in you, right? But you have to keep yourself relevant every single day. So that brings me to the mental model for careers. And I call this the ABCD of career resilience. And in fact, I had put out a LinkedIn post about this a while back. So the ABCD of career resilience, I have a lot of people who come to me as part of the career resilience coaching to say, hey, Jagan, I'm troubled because of this AI disruption and, I'm not able to keep pace with it. How do I keep, how do I survive this career? And there are young graduates who ask me this question because they are just starting up their career and they cannot see even 5 years ahead. And I would say, most of us who are from my generation are pretty lucky that we actually managed to see 25, 30 years of our career. And I think, boils down to these ABCD fundamentals. You have to be adaptable, right? And I will blow it a little bit here to say what is adaptability. Adaptability is not just looking at what is happening in the technology landscape. What new technology should I learn? It's not just that. And I want to kind of give you a very good example from people whose jobs have been impacted. A very common pattern here is people are not adapting to what is happening in their organization around them, upwards of them. And a good example is, I bump into a lot of people, career professionals. Some of them are actually even senior professionals, not just the junior ones. And what usually happens when they lose their job, one of the exercises I give them is, okay, reflect on your last 1 year and come back and tell me what were the events that you missed. And interestingly, technology is not an event that they missed. Okay, many of them are fairly smart. They keep up to date with what is happening, but they are not kept up to date with what is happening in terms of organization dynamics. I have quite a number of cases where their immediate leadership changed. It could be their manager or the manager's manager. Something changed in the leadership, and people are so comfortable in their in their zone that they are almost like the ostrich, buried their heads under the sand and think moving on with life, thinking nothing will happen to them. What they missed was, I would say, like the alarm bell that went off when the leadership changed. And that is also part of adaptability. Another part of adaptability is, okay, you're getting a new boss. One of the things that we inherently try to do as human beings is we always tend to compare with a previous boss who was, where we had a very good equation with. Now you have to adapt to the new boss, right? No two human beings are the same. No two leaders are the same leadership style. So try to adapt to the new leadership style. Try to adapt to the new, ways of working, and then you will start to flow with life. You will start to flow with that leadership. Oftentimes we just get stuck in that. So adaptability is a whole lot of things here, right? It is not just technology adoption alone, right? Or technology adaptability alone. You have to adjust to change and you have to be aware of change. It's like your antennas have to be always up to understand what is happening around me, what is happening to my career, what is happening to my organization, what is happening to the technology landscape, what is happening to my boss, right? What is happening to my teams? Everything is important, right? And the antennas always have to be up. Then there are two aspects here, breadth and depth, I want to talk about. B and D before we go to the C. B and D is important because in the VUCA world, it's very important to almost develop like a T-shaped career, right? Where you are considered to be a subject matter expert in certain areas where you can go deep. But more and more, it is very relevant for people to have breadth. You have to be, at least having, I would say, people may go back to saying, oh, jack of all, master of none. I would say you have to be a jack of all and master of one. Okay. One or two, right? At least one to begin with. So don't be a jack of all, master of none. Be a jack of all, master of one. But you have to be a jack of all. It just in today's world, it's not enough to just be a master of one. So it's very, very relevant because one of the things, since you're all CIOs, I will also bring your attention to this. In the new age of AI, there's a new career that is created. It's called a forward deployed engineer. FDE is what is called. It's not picked up much in India today, in today's job landscape. A forward deployed engineer is basically a jack of all. He or she understands technology, he or she understands the technology stack, he or she understands customers, he or she understands the product roadmap. He or she knows how to deal with customers, how to deal with crisis situations. So this is a very popular role that is becoming, very prevalent in, I would say, in the US markets, and slowly I'm beginning to see some of these jobs open up in India. If you actually peel the onion and look at the job description, it is basically a jack of all. So people want, they are looking for professionals who have the breadth. And of course, if they are good in one or two topics, that really brings in a lot of value. So B and D are very important. And for you to have adaptability, breadth and depth, curiosity is an underlying element. You have to be eternally, everyday curious about what is happening, curious about how you can bring about change, curious about challenging the status quo, right? Not settling for what exists today, right? Curious to understand what is happening with every single individual. If you're a people leader, curious to understand what is happening in technology, curious to understand what your boss is going through, curious to understand where your organization is headed. So curiosity, like they say, contrary to curiosity kills the cat. Here, curiosity, helps the professional. So this is the ABCD of career resilience. And again, you have to reflect on what aspect needs to be strengthened. And we'll come back to this at the end of the slide deck. So again, I will pause and we'll see if there are any comments here. I think somebody is asked for recording, and I think Varundeep, you already answered that. Yes, forward deployed engineer, go and look it up and you will find it very interesting. Okay. Does the Kundli houses or lines play a role in career resilience? Okay. Then why individuals still believe in that? Okay, that's a good question. I will answer that. Personally, not like I'm against the Kundli or astrology or anything. But I believe you can actually drive your destiny, right? To a large extent. There are things beyond your control, but the important part is the pause and accept. Once you have accepted that it happened to you, it doesn't matter whether you believe in Kundli or not. If it happens to you, it happens to you, right? But how you manage and navigate your life from there on, after having accepted the situation, is entirely in your hands. In fact, very philosophically or spiritually speaking, everybody has a free will, right? God has given us free will to do what we believe is right. And as long as we do it to manage ourselves and manage the society at large in a good way, we are absolutely free to do it. Why people believe in Kundli, I don't know. That's an individual thing, so I don't want to comment on that. Karma has, I don't know whether it is Karna or Karma. It says Karna has the power to change destiny. That's what separates humans from animals. Absolutely. That's the free will that I was talking about. So humans have a free will, animals don't. Humans have the absolute choice to decide what they want to do with their life, right? And this is a very important aspect. I also want to share with you my own personal experience with how I navigated my career. I'm not saying I'm like Satya Nadella or the Sundar Pichais of the world, but in my own way, I believe I have managed my career fairly well. I have had people who have come and given me advice saying, "Why do you keep moving companies? Why can't you just stay in the same company?" And I believe I have stayed in a company for as long as I believe I was valued. And when I felt that I was not valued, I said, okay, I have to choose my own destiny, right? And I didn't see anything wrong with that because as long as I was working in a company, my heart and soul was in my job. Didn't mean that I should not manage my career. And I also had this famous thing that I usually tell my coaching clients, and when I also mentored people, I used to say that career growth should happen in spite of your manager, not because of your manager. A lot of people almost like, okay, they just surrender to their manager and expect the manager to manage their careers. And this is like one of the fundamentals of career development planning that we are all taught, saying that every employee should manage their own careers, which is indeed true. They should not expect their managers to take care of them, right? And because the manager has to take care of himself or herself, right? They are also engineers or they are also employees in their own right. So I keep telling people, you have to manage your career, and your career growth should happen in spite of your manager, not because of your manager. So there's a lot of free will we have. There's a lot of things that we can do to control and be relevant in our careers forever. And whether AI comes tomorrow, whether a new technology comes, and fortunately, I've been in a generation from AS400 to artificial intelligence, AS400 to AI, right? So I have seen a lot of evolutions of technology, and every single wave, is a disruption. But what is important is how do you keep staying relevant? As long as you stay relevant, whatever career you do. In fact, another thing that I want to share while we are on the topic of careers is because this is probably the single most important thing on people's mind. I often see, when people come to me, like I told you, they lose their sense of identity when they lose their job. And one question, I throw back at them for reflection is there a life outside of a corporate job? Have you even thought about it? And that's a very very powerful reflection for people. And oftentimes I hear clients coming back and telling me that, yeah, there is a little bit of a uncertain or an unknown when it comes to maybe being a consultant or being a freelancer, because there's no certainty of getting a paycheck or with a specific salary at the end of the month. But the entire thought that, okay, you can actually have a life outside of a corporate world is very liberating. And I have seen at least about 10%, 20% of my clients actually have taken to consulting when they have lost their corporate job. And it's been pretty rewarding for them, right? They take a few months to settle down in that. But once they have landed their first client, second client, it's pretty fulfilling for them, right? And it's very liberating. And my own case, I'm a freelance coach and I manage my own life. I manage my own time. If I don't want to work for a week, I just block my calendar. So I don't have to go and check with my boss. And yes, it is hard to establish yourself. It's like running your own business. But once you do that, I tell people, if you are a consultant, you can be a consultant until you decide to stop consulting, right? Until your last breath, you can keep consulting. I know of a lot of people who keep consulting even into their 80s because they have built that credibility. So that is also another way of actually adapting and reinventing your career, right? So this is, I would say, the ABCD of career resilience, irrespective of whatever technology disruptions, whatever disruptions happen. It could be a disruption like COVID also. ABCD is a time-tested formula, right? As long as you have those four attributes, you'll continue to keep staying relevant like the bamboo. If there are no other thoughts, I will move to the next layer of the resilience core. Any other comments? Okay, let me move forward. We did spend a lot of time on career resilience, but this is probably the single biggest question on people's mind. All right, then we move on to organization resilience, right? Organization is like a grove of bamboos, right? All having interconnected roots and they become stronger than a single bamboo, right? And that's what organizations are all about. And like the thriving bamboo grove, you have to build enduring culture and processes in your organization, which will lead to permanence. And I'm sure all of you are CIOs. This is a book that you have to read if you have not read the book. Even if you are not into reading, at least get a book summary of this. This book by James Collins and Porras is like a legendary book. It's called Built to Last, and I actually took the liberty of using the same keyword in my title for organization resilience. You have to build organizations that last. So I'm going to ask you a very quick question. Uh, can can uh, can you guys name organizations which have lasted beyond 100 years? A few organizations. Put it on the chat, please. No googling, please. It's very easy to get that list. Tata, I have my doubts. I don't think Tata actually is beyond 100, but maybe it is. Raymond, IBM. Okay. Yeah, there are some very small businesses which people have not heard about, but they have lasted. Uh, in fact, just before this, I was actually having ketchup on my plate, and it was a Kisan ketchup. And I saw when it was established, Kisan has been there from 1934, which is like almost a century, right? Colgate. Good, good. But do you know how many organizations exist in the world? Thousands of them, right? There are very few which endure. And you all know the story of Kodak, you all know the story of Blockbuster, right? How they just went bust. They were all at the peak of their industry. And one fine day they just, poof, they just went off in smoke, right? So organization resilience is very important. Yeah, BlackBerry died, isn't it? One more of those famous stories who were ahead of the curve and then they died, right? Just like Blockbuster, if you guys haven't heard of Blockbuster, there used to be a video rental service in the US. And they, like the ostrich, they put their head under the sand and they said, okay, when Netflix came along, they said, oh, no disruption, right? And one fine day, they declared bankruptcy, right? So there are, I think, statistically, there are probably less than 5% of organizations, maybe 10%, I don't know the exact statistics, but very few, very small percentage of organizations go on to survive beyond a century. It's like a big deal, right? And so that brings us to the topic of what do you have to do to make organizations resilient? And again, I have the same ABCD model. It looks very different though. Okay. A is all about adaptive culture and processes. Just like a human being or a career, you're having adaptability. For organizations, it's all about how do you build an organization culture and organization processes that keep adapting. And the other thing is BHAG. How many of you know what is BHAG? Have you heard BHAG? I want to see on chat. Many of you have heard that. No Googling, please. What is BHAG? I intentionally kept it as BHAG, did not expand it. Have any of you heard the word or the term? No, okay. Okay, nobody has heard it. Anybody wants to hazard a guess? What is BHAG? Okay, this is a very powerful term. Since you have not heard about it, let me big. Okay, no, it is not. It is BHAG. It is not BIG. Ah, yes. Very, yeah, I think you probably got nearly that. It's not big heart, it's big hairy audacious goal. Absolutely. It was probably a typo. Yes, absolutely. And this is very, very important for organizations to survive the long term. Good examples of BHAG, if you see, you could see, for example, uh, Tesla's, ambition, right, to make everything electric. That is a big, hairy, audacious goal. Elon Musk's BHAG to send man to Mars, that will keep his organization relevant for another century, right? Because probably will take another 50, 100 years before we can send men to Mars. Another good example of BHAG would probably be AI itself, right? For several organizations, right? It's a really big, hairy, audacious goal. A lot of such audacious goals is what keeps the organization alive and kicking for a long time. Why is this important? It is important because you are having a vision that stretches far beyond the immediate few years. And if you want your organizations to last a long time, you really need to have audacious goals. So that is a B here. The C is core values and purpose. This also is, I would say, a lot of organizations still have a core value that has been unchanged in time for a long time. And there are organizations which have lasted over a century where their core values and purpose have also evolved, right? Have also evolved with time. Both are absolutely fine, but very, very important for organizations to make sure that they don't lose their core values and purpose. The purpose can keep changing. That's absolutely fine. The purpose can keep expanding, maybe from a narrow purpose to a broader purpose. But it's very important for organizations to be rooted in core values and purpose. And exactly like the B and D of career, the D of disciplined execution goes hand in hand with BHAG. Why? Because BHAG is strategic, but a strategy is only as good as its execution. You cannot have fancy strategies and not do anything about executing it, right? So you need to have disciplined execution, relentless, right? Keep going on and on and on, right? Be phenomenal when it comes to execution. Another good example of BHAG is how Steve Jobs conceived of the smartphone. He reinvented the smartphone, right? And he executed on it. He did not simply have a vision and said, "Oh, I have a vision." No, he said, "Okay, I'm going to actually produce a phone." He, got the best designer out there, Johnny Ive, and he actually built it out, right? And then he had a great launch. And at least for last 10, 15 years, right? It's continuing to evolve. Maybe Apple is losing its relevance a little bit. I hope they don't go down the Kodak way, but hopefully they will reinvent themselves. It's a great organization, and but execution was behind Steve Jobs, visionary, goal. So this is the ABCD of organization resilience. And again, ask yourself the question: what aspect needs to be strengthened? And we'll come to an interactive exercise on this. So again, I will pause here to see if anything resonates with people. Yeah, absolutely. Plant 1 billion trees by 2030. Absolutely. Phenomenal. I don't know the BHAG of Apple. Uh, I don't know. I don't know whether they had a BHAG, and obviously, these BHAGs are not publicly shared. Oftentimes, it will just, yeah. If you know it, please do share. Focus on reinventing and BPR. I don't know what BPR meant, but yeah, if you know it, Vijay Kumar, that will be great learning for me as well. If you can share the BHAG of Apple, if you know that. How many of you can relate to this, the ABCD of organization resilience in your capacity as leaders of organizations? Most of you are CXOs, right? So design a smartphone with a single button. I see. Okay. Fabulous. And he executed it, right? He got it done. It was not just a vision. Fabulous. I didn't know that. Thanks, Vijay. All right. Any other perspectives? Okay. Let's switch to the last layer, which is societal resilience. Now, societal resilience is the bamboo grow in a forest. And we are talking here about sustainable growth. What do you mean by sustainable growth here? We mean the bamboo does not outgrow the forest. Have you ever seen a forest being encroached by a bamboo all over and it becomes just a bamboo forest? No, it is fairly lives within its realm. It does survive, but it does not encroach. So that is sustainable growth. And what does sustainable growth lead to? Leads to a successful legacy. There are so many organizations, many of them that you mentioned. One of the classic ones, of course, we all know is Tata, right? He left a legacy behind, and so did many of the others as well, many successful business leaders. And they had a purpose that outlived them, right? They continue to pass down, the values of the organization keeps passing down through many other leaders. They they adapt, they evolve, but they maintain that legacy, right? They maintain the legacy, they maintain the brand name. And how do they do it is by doing several things, and which is what we will talk about in societal resilience. Again, simple to remember ABCD, but it has completely different meanings. What does A mean here? A means you are intentionally aware of what are the ripple effects of you and your organization on society. So it's almost like not having a tunnel vision of, oh, my organization needs to make money this quarter, but really seeing, okay, how does it impact the planet? We just talked about very good example there, right? Planting 1 billion trees by 2030. It's an excellent example of an organization that is actually thinking of society, thinking of how they can create a lasting impact. Then you talk about progress, balance between progress and planet. This is sustainability, right? All about sustainability. So everybody is now very aware of sustainability. It has almost become like a tick mark for companies to go IPO, right? The ESG focus and things like that. But ESG, in my opinion, kind of is a very recent concept. But a lot of companies have actually followed these sustainability principles even before ESG came about as a concept. And these are the organizations that are continuing to live and thrive, right, for centuries. And then you have to have collective trust and compassion for people in your society, right? It is not just about, I will do what it takes for me to make my next quarterly, results. I really don't care about taking people along. And here I want to call out a very noble comment that came from, the current CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillan. In fact, I had even commented on his, post on LinkedIn. Because it was very profound, and he's almost like he's retiring next month. But what he said about AI was very profound. What he said was that AI will impact lives, but what I want to do in Walmart is to make sure that everybody is capable of, adapting to AI, right? And kind of reskilling them so that people don't lose jobs. And in case you didn't know, Walmart is I think the biggest employer in US, or maybe the second biggest. So they do have so many people, right? Hundreds of thousands of employees, and it was such a noble thought that the CEO could always say that, oh, guys, be ready for the AI wave, right? And you may lose your jobs. No, but there was a lot of compassion in what he mentioned. And I being a ex Walmart employee, I'm pretty proud of Walmart's culture, and how they actually take care of every employee. Are very compassionate about how Walmart creates an impact on society, and that's their bottom line as well. So that is a very key aspect of an organization surviving and contributing back to society. And finally, it's about dignity and inclusion. This is about embracing all parts of the society, taking people along, right? Differently abled people, any kind of strata of society, take them along, take them along in your organization, take them along as a person, and that is what creates that lasting legacy. And this is what creates societal resilience. So civilizations, really, societal resilience is all about civilizations that thrive. And if you see civilizations that thrive, they take care of all of these aspects. They are very sustainable. They look at all the impact on things that happen around them. They take people along, and they keep thriving century after century. And if you see civilizations that got destroyed, somewhere, some of these aspects of resilience were missing. So ask again, ask yourself the question, what aspect needs to be strengthened, right? So I will pause here because now we have talked about the four layers. Now we are going to talk about another, very powerful mental model uh, that I call as the bamboo mindset, which will be the next segue into the next part of the presentation. So I will just pause here to see if there are any comments. Humility, honesty, innovation, perseverance. Common trait across personal, career, and organization resilience. How does it map to social resilience? Uh, it does not map to social resilience. You're very right that these are common aspects. Humility, absolutely, innovation, perseverance. Yes, they are all about reinventing. Social resilience is a slightly different animal in that you really have to elevate your thinking. It is not just about surviving anymore, right? It is about ensuring a lasting impact on the planet and the world in which we live. So you could talk about it in the aspect of innovation maybe, but it's a societal resilience really requires thinking beyond, right? Thinking beyond personal career and organization, because societal resilience is a much lasting, long lasting aspect of resilience. So there is no direct map if you actually see, but you have actually nicely called it out. Humility, honesty, innovation, perseverance. Absolutely. All right. Now let's shift to the bamboo mindset. Okay. And be ready with your Mentimeter. It's the same thing, but I will flip to a different page on this. But here is the bamboo mindset. It's a very simple 2 by 2 grid that you kind of mentally visualize. The x-axis talks about how you deal with change. When I say how you deal with change, it could be you as a person, it could be you as an organization, right? Uh, in fact, you as a society as well. And y-axis is how do you face reality? Okay. So I want to probably take a few minutes to actually, talk about some good examples here, right? Uh, we all want to be always in the bamboo zone, right? We are talking about bamboo leadership, and bamboo zone is where you're completely flowing with change and you're completely accepting reality, right? Classic example in recent times, I would say Satya Nadella, right? How he reinvented Microsoft. If you have not read his book, I think it's called Hit Refresh. Fabulous book about his journey in Microsoft. If you see, it is all about how he flew with change, right? How he kind of just accepted the change that was coming along, which was the cloud disruption. And he observed what was the mindset of Microsoft as a whole, where it was almost like I know it all kind of a culture. And he said, I want to shift it to a growth mindset. And then he accepted reality. He knew that okay, Microsoft was getting beaten down badly by Google and Amazon, and they were not ready for the game. And if you read his book and you've also seen the journey of Microsoft, he just turned it around in just a few years. And for an organization of the size of Microsoft, that's phenomenal, right? And if you really go and look at his, personal story as well, it starts from his personal resilience. He has a very a tough family life. I will not go into more details, but definitely he has talked about it in many of his interviews, and that made him an extremely resilient human being, right? And he brought out that as a leadership personality trait onto his company, and it's like it's like going guns. It's like blazing guns. Guns blazing today, right? Microsoft is all over the place. So that's a great example of somebody in the bamboo zone. Now, a break zone is what really crumbles people, right? And I want to kind of give you some examples here, right? I'm kind of reading from my notes here. Uh, Brittle zone is again, very tricky, because what happens in a brittle zone is that you accept reality, but you're caught up with your old ways of working. Okay. So it is like, I would say it is like, the heroic, maybe CIO or CTO who is like a operations head, right? He's like a hero in operations, or maybe, somebody who has spent a long time in an organization, and who accepts reality. He or she knows, okay, organization is moving and all that, but they are stuck with their old ways of working, right? They don't want to change, and that is an extremely dangerous zone to be in, right? Because it makes a person really brittle. It's like just break, right? Now, drift zone is very interesting because this is like, I would say, very typical mindset of people. Again, I'm not demeaning to anybody here, but you commonly hear this problem of this is the startup founder mindset, where every day there is a new idea, every day there is something that will keep changing. Now the problem here is that you're kind of flowing with change, but you're not accepting reality. You're not staring at reality in the face. You're unwilling to actually see what you're being hit with. Every day there is a change, and you're kind of, that's why it is called drift zone, because you're drifting without a purpose. The break zone, I don't have to tell, right? Break zone is where you're resistant to change, you're not flowing with change, you're not accepting reality. This is what really crumbles you, right? It is like a heartbreak. So we always want to be aspired to get into the bamboo zone every single day. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if you are on Mentimeter, I would love to see the word cloud. There are three questions here, and we'll take it one at a time. Okay. So the first one is, where do you find yourself most when disruption hits? So I'm going to switch to Mentimeter. Let me reshare and start typing away. I will shift the Mentimeter to the next survey. Where do you find yourself most often when disruption hits? Let's start with this question. This is personal resilience. Are you able to get onto Mentimeter? It's the same code, except that I moved to a different slide. Are you able to see this? Barundeep, if you could acknowledge that.
Yeah, the screen you are seeing?
Yeah, yeah. Are you able to see this question? Are you able to answer to
Yeah,
this
yeah.
on Mentimeter? Because I'm not seeing any responses yet.
But I think the same question is coming up. Like, what are the barriers to being
Ah,
resilient?
okay. Got it. Okay. I think I have to. Now, do you see this?
One second. Question.
I just shifted it to
Mhm. The older questions.
now.
Yeah, yeah, it is that. Now it is.
Okay.
Yeah. The code is 2870
It's the same code.
Yeah,
If you have been on Mentimeter, it's the
yeah.
same Mentimeter,
Mm.
except that it's a different question. Okay, fabulous. I see two people are in the bamboo zone. Great. We have bamboo leaders already. Drift zone, brittle zone. Okay. Happy to see that nobody is in the break zone yet. Bamboo, lot of bamboo leaders here. Excellent. We have 25 people, right? We have more people in the room, so expect to see more responses. We have only about 10 now. No names are coming out, guys, so feel free to safe space. Feel free to put what. This is more of a reflection for you. Only 11. Great. We have a lot of bamboo leaders here. Excellent. Very happy to see that. All right, I'm not seeing the counter move. So what we will do is we'll go to the next one. We'll go to the next question and tell me if you can see this. I'm going to present it again. Now, where do you think your team operates? Okay, now you are all bamboo leaders. Are your teams in the bamboo zone? Brittle, okay. Ooh, break zone. Not good, not good. Okay. Okay. Two of you said bamboo zone. Okay, that's really nice. Must be having a phenomenal team. Only 12 of you are answering. Okay, now it became 13. Okay. Feel free to answer. This is more of a reflection, not that you have to compulsorily answer here, but 5 of you said brittle zone. Okay, something for you to look at, introspect. Why are they brittle? What can you do as leaders to get them into the bamboo zone? Break zone. Okay, that is scary. Why are they crumbling? 15 of you have responded. Okay, so this is a reflection for all of you that you are seeing quite a lot of people in the brittle and break zone. So as leaders, time for you to actually reflect to see what can you do to move them into the bamboo zone. Contrary to your own selves, where a lot of you were in the bamboo zone, so you are having that inner strength. Now, how do you translate it to your teams? Is something that you have to reflect on, right? Okay. Now we'll go to the next slide. So we had good participation on this. Oops, sorry. I think that was. I'll come back to this. So I'm going to stop sharing. We'll come back to this. 34 have joined Mentimeter, but only 18 replied. Slideshow. Right. I hope you can see my slide. Varundeep, can see my slides?
Yeah. That's good.
All right. So the question that you will need to ask is, what would help you shift one step closer to the bamboo zone, both in your context and for your teams? If you, in a personal context, you're already in the bamboo zone, great. But if your teams aren't, see what you will need to do to actually, get them to deal with change and flow with change and get them to accept reality. So one of the key things here as leaders, one of the key things that you can do is to have honest and transparent communication. So I remember one of you mentioned, I think it was Prasad or Vijay or somebody. One of you mentioned, humility, right? As a common trait. So being humble and being, transparent, being vulnerable with your teams really helps because, sometimes you yourself, a situation may hit you where you drifted from a bamboo zone into some other zone. It's absolutely okay for you to go and have that communication with your teams and saying that, hey guys, you know what, this broke me. But as a team and as a person, let's all get resilient. Let's all get into the bamboo zone. This is a very powerful construct that you can actually share with your teams as well. Talk to them about the bamboo, right? And having that honest, transparent communication really helps. So you have to also talk about this is also a very powerful construct, in the context of change management. If you are moving people through change, if you are taking people through transformations, which I'm sure all of you as CIOs, probably that's part of your KPIs. Very key aspect is to understand where individual people in your teams or in your organizations are on the change curve. Are they in the resisting zone? Are they in the flowing zone? Are they somebody who will just quickly move through the resistance and adapt to reality? If not, talk to them individually and see how you can help them make the transition very quickly. The faster they transition over, their resistance to acceptance, you can move most of your teams into the bamboo zone. So something for all of you to think about and have really tangible steps to see how you can navigate your own resilience and your team's resilience. Because with your team's resilience, your organization also moves along, right? So again, here the concept of PARAG comes to your rescue. Because if you actually again go and embrace the PARAG mindset or the resilience loop, pausing will actually move you up, right? Wherever you are in this 2x2 matrix, it will help you move up, basically, to accept reality. And accept will basically, help you flow with change. It helps you move to the right. So if you are in the brittle zone, you want to actually move right. You're already doing good. So for you, accepting reality is easy. But you have to basically, get into, facing reality is okay, but you have to actually flow with the change. So when you get into the A part of the parag, you are basically moving into the bamboo zone, right? And when you get into the R part, the reframe part, it actually shifts your mindset. And A builds momentum, and then you basically, start to move that one step towards the bamboo zone, and that becomes your new normal. So you're basically starting to anchor your mindset into a new normal. And slowly you will start to, shift towards the bamboo zone, right? And so that's why I said, Parag is kind of almost fundamental as as a mental model. And that will really help you move you and your teams to the bamboo zone. Now let's come to the leadership paradox. Remember, we talked about the storm in the forest, the VUCA. Now, as leaders, there's a paradox here. You have to preserve the core, which is what we talked about, right? From an organization perspective, it's core values and purpose. From a personal resilience perspective, it is about your inner roots. What are your values? How are you managing the Parag loop? And you have to kind of preserve the core here, because as leaders, you are expected to preserve the core values of the organization. You are expected to, make sure that you are grounded. But yet, as leaders, you are supposed to stimulate progress. You just can't be like rooted and not move. So the question that all of you have to ask is, where in your leadership are you holding too tightly, and where do you need to bend? If you remember, this entire session was about bend, don't break. Right? We want to be the bamboo. We don't want to be those broken trees out there. So where in your leadership are you holding too tightly? That's a question you all need to ask. All right. Now, with this said, we are going to do something called the bamboo pledge. Okay, it's almost like taking the oath. So I'm going to again ask you to shift to Mentimeter, and we'll all take about 5 minutes, probably, maybe a couple of minutes each. I want each of you to actually, again, you feel free to not do it if you're uncomfortable, but it'll be good for you to actually do this as a pledge even when you go out of the session. So I'm going to switch back to Mentimeter now. Let's do one at a time. Let's start with one route in Parag that you will strengthen daily. I will flash up each of these questions there. So let me shift to Mentimeter again. Same code. So Varundeep, let me know if you're able to see this.
Just a moment.
Okay, reframe, excellent. This is a free text, so keep typing.
Mm.
And this is almost like a daily ritual you'll have to do, right? So you have to focus on what aspect of Parag is troubling you. It could be in a personal context, it could be in a professional context, it could be in some other context, could be a relationship context, it could be a financial context. In whatever context it is, what is that one root that you will strengthen every day? It is almost like a muscle that you're building, a resilience muscle that you're building, right? So it's almost like going to the gym every day. Accept, adapt, and grow. Excellent. Reframe. And I see two people have just put dots. Okay. Absolutely okay. Reframe, accept and grow. Okay. Reflect. Yes, reflect and reframe. Absolutely. Reframe and grow. Okay. Looks like reframe is the biggest problem for people, right? And like I said, reframe requires a lot of courage. I'm just grouping them to see, where it goes. Reframe, grow, accept, adopt. Fabulous. Actually, there are 6 groups. Reflect. Okay. Pause and act. Pausing is very important. Okay, because we are always in such a hurry that pausing itself is like a very powerful phenomenon. So pause is a very important thing. All right, that is good. We got a lot of responses. Thanks for that. Let's go to the next one. Next aspect. What is that one aspect of ABCD that you will focus on? Just to refresh your memory on ABCD, A is adaptability, B is breadth, C is curiosity, and D is depth. What are you going to keep your careers resilient? Depth, okay, okay. Adaptability. Remember all the aspects of adaptability I talked about, right? It is not just technology alone. Yes, adaptability is very important. Okay, it's interesting that people talk about depth, but nobody has talked about breadth so far. Remember the jack of all. Remember the FD. Okay, now there is one breadth here. All right. Wow, a lot of adaptability here. Nice. Pause. Okay, pause is not for career resilience, but it's okay. It's fine. Wow, a lot of adaptability. Okay, excellent. We have quite a lot of responses here. Breadth. Okay, and again, this is something that's an ongoing thing that you have to keep focusing on, right? So think about that. Let me go to the next one. This is going to be an interesting thing, okay? Because each of you are probably in different organizations. Think about in your organization context, what is that one core value that you're going to preserve as leaders? Okay, BHAG. Okay, nice. I'm assuming that's a core value. And again, when I say organization, it could be in your context, your sphere of influence. May not be the larger organization, but anyway, as leaders in an organization, you have a culture around you, right? You define your culture. So perseverance. Okay. Purpose. Excellent. Core values. Empathy. Wow. Ethics. Yeah. So you're seeing already that as you get into organization resilience, you're kind of the resilience becomes a little more difficult to practice, and societal resilience will become even more challenging, right? Which is what I was talking about earlier. Personal resilience immediately, you can think about it because it's your context. When you get into your organization and societal, it becomes much broader, and this is where you as leaders have to really open up your mind, because that's how you create legacies. change. Okay. I'm seeing like fewer and fewer responses. Now interestingly, let's go to the societal resilience. Let's see how many we get here. One initiative in your community that builds shared resilience. You may or may not have an answer for this immediately, but start to think about it. Maybe we'll just spend a few minutes on this. I don't have many more slides. I think we are pretty much at the end. Empathy. Wow. Okay. That's really nice. Inclusion. Very good. Values. This is getting harder, isn't it? But think about it. If you see a lot of leaders who have left a legacy, I'm sure they were probably thinking about this day in and day out. How is it that they can leave a legacy? How is it that they can leave a community that's very resilient? Create awareness about resilience. Very interesting. Yes, that's a very good idea because a lot of people just crumble, right? And this is very I find it very sometimes very I would say disturbing. Not really that it affects me a lot, but I find it disturbing that people just break down when I have this career resilience sessions, right? And it's like 30 minutes they are just pouring out, and yeah, and it's not good to see people crumbling like that. Involvement motivating, right? You're seeing the responses have become fewer and fewer, right? And this is where it becomes very difficult to think about societal resilience, but you have to start to flip the story. You have to have more things here and less things on your personal side because you're all bamboo leaders already, isn't it? All right, so now I'm going to stop this. This is the last survey that we had. Let me switch back to the slides. I don't have very many more. We are pretty much at the end now. You're able to see the slides? Varundeep, yes, you're able to see the slide, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so last couple of ones, more of a wrap up now. Uh, like I told you, I do have this career resilience program that I do. Nearly about 40% of my clients are, do take up career resilience coaching. Very interesting thing there is that I have this concept called the resilience quotient. So there is a questionnaire that I have. I'll be happy to share that with all of you. There are about 50 questions that you answer, and it tells you, on a scale of 0 to 5, where are you with respect to your resilience quotient, right? And what is your typical, archetype? What kind of a personality are you? And what is the kind of insight that you get? A one-line insight that you get about who you are as a person, right? This is a pretty interesting way to kind of look at, it's almost like your resilience maturity index, right? Like the CMM index. So this is what I do, and one small wrap-up slide, which brings all of this into one picture. You have this thing on the left, which is your layers of resilience. You have this bamboo mindset, and we talk about bamboo leadership, the art of bouncing forward, where there are three key elements: flow, flex, and flourish. That brings me to the end of this presentation. Happy to take questions, whatever you have, and I will probably stop sharing. And we can go back to the slides, to the session to see whether there are things that people want to talk about.
So
Have I, have I
anybody
stopped
has,
sharing, Inga? Yeah, I've stopped sharing, right? Okay.
yeah. So anybody has any questions, any inputs, want to speak, then I can unmute you. Okay. I think everybody is absorbing and they have got uh, um, through the Mentimeter questions, I think they have already reflected. And the feedback regarding the session is also pouring in. The session is there. The audience has found the session good and insightful and informative. So if there are no more questions,
Practice required, yes, absolutely.
yeah.
This is a daily practice.
Okay. I think there are no questions, only inputs that the session has been good and insightful and informative, and definitely it has. Like we have learned about bamboo, but obviously four quadrants or four dimensions that you have talked about is something new that you have brought in, and that leads to a balanced perspective rather than focusing on one and then thinking why I'm not prospering in another. I think that is how it is, and like Gaurav also said that it requires practice and obviously reframing and reflection, like you also mentioned. I think there are a lot of key takeaways that all of us probably have to revisit the session through the recording again, find pointers and put it across.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share the resilience quotient exercise also with you, Varundeep, offline.
Yeah,
You can feel free to share it with all the leaders here.
right.
And again, it's all for your self-reflection, right? Not that you
Yeah,
have to share it back with me or something, but yeah, I'm
yeah,
happy that it was valuable to all of you. And
right,
again, thanks Varundeep for the opportunity to interact with so many leaders,
right,
so many
right.
bamboo leaders.
Yeah, right. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
a lot of
I
bamboo
think there is
leaders.
one question which has come from Anil. He says, like, at which maturity level the organization should adopt the bamboo leadership style.
Okay, the maturity at which the organization should be to adopt bamboo leadership style.
Mm,
Uh, it is really so the organization adopting, there is nothing like an organization adopting because the organization is made up of leaders, right?
mhm,
So it is the leaders who take the organization to resilience.
mhm,
So, what is the aspect of each of you as leader when you think about organization resilience will
mhm,
come out when you actually talk about the resilience quotient, when you answer the questionnaire.
mhm,
The way the questionnaire is structured is that there are questions on all the four layers of resilience, and each of them has a weightage. And like I told you, the personal resilience has the highest weightage because if your core is bad, all the other things will fall apart. And based on the weightage, it will tell you which aspect of resilience, which layer of resilience you really have to focus on. So if your organization resilience needs a lot of focus, it will start showing up as a yellow or a red. And that is then an indication for you to actually focus on the ABCD of organization resilience.
mhm,
So organization itself, there is no organization maturity model to answer the question that Anil had here. It is not like a CMMI where there is an organization resilience model, because what we are talking about here is how do individuals as individuals really bring about the organization resilience in their organizations, because an organization is not a living entity, right? An organization is the sum total of individuals who actually contribute to the organization. So if I have 100 leaders in an organization at executive level who are all bamboo leaders, the organization will become resilient, right? Just to kind of give an example here, Anil, a good example is if you go and read the Kodak story, how Kodak failed as an organization. The leaders at the top, they actually had one scientist who came and told them that digital photography is going to be a disruption. And he was a scientist working in Kodak. Yet the executive leadership refused to listen to him. And that is a case where your executive leadership were not bamboo leaders. They were either in the drift zone or they were in the break zone or they were in the brittle zone, right? In fact, they didn't accept reality. So they were probably in the drift zone or they were in the break zone. And that is why the organization crumbled.
mhm.
So, since the organization is not a living entity, it is basically the living entities in the organization who have to have that resilience.
Yeah, definitely. So I hope, Anil, your question is answered. You are satisfied with the response. Uh, And there is one more question from Suresh. He says that in today's world, when leaders' tenure is also short and more mercenary in nature, how can organization resilience be ensured?
in today's world, when leaders' tenure is also short and more mercenary, how can org resilience be ensured? That's a very good question. Interestingly, this is what I was talking about when we talked about adaptability, right? So both in the context of career resilience and organization resilience, AI is actually adaptable. So when leaders change, when leaders there's a churn in the leadership level, and oftentimes this happens through mergers, acquisitions, or the entire leadership is thrown away and new leadership comes along. The organization resilience is only ensured if the new leaders are able to continue or evolve the cultures and processes and core values of the company to be resilient. A good example is Tata's, right? If you see when Tata generation passed away, the next generation continues to have that same core values, right? They have evolved and they are adopting it, right? They are not kind of broken apart. But there are organizations which have just broken away, right? Because the continuity in the leadership did not happen, and the continuity in the core values and purpose did not happen. So that's the reason I again go back to who defines the organization resilience are the people. If the leaders are not adapting their cultures and processes, if the leaders are not adapting themselves, if the leaders are not evolving their core values and purpose, the organization will crumble. So whether they are mercenary, whether they are like living quarter to quarter, like just getting their quarterly results done and then move on with life, it is all a factor of what the individuals bring to the table in terms of organization resilience. So if they actually think, that's the reason why a lot of leaders, CEO selections, right, is a very mature and a very deliberate process. So, for example, if I have to go back to the Walmart example where there's a new CEO coming from 1st of January, I'm sure they have done a lot of due diligence to make sure the new CEO inculcates the same culture and values and he preserves the same culture and values which are core to the organization's survival. So it is usually a deliberate process, but I agree with Suresh that sometimes it can just be a bad decision and it can be completely orthogonal to the company's existence, and yeah, then the organization would crumble. You cannot ensure organization resilience. Good question, Suresh.
Right. So Suresh is happy with your response.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other
Uh,
questions, Varunji?
yeah, no, I can't see any further questions. I think the session was insightful and the deliberation and discussion also, I think, was fruitful and
Yeah,
knowledgeable.
I
I
loved
think Gurdeep,
the participation.
Gurdeep ji has raised his hand. 1 second, Gurdeep ji, I'll unmute you. 1 second.
Yeah, please, Gurdeep, go ahead.
Yeah, 1 second, I'm unmuting.
Oh, okay.
This. Yeah, Gurdeep ji, you can unmute and
Hello.
speak. Yeah.
Gurdeep.
Hi, Jagan S. So there is no question at all. I just would like to thank you. So the session was very well structured and informative. So the idea is, in order to prosper or flourish or any grow, right? So we have learned first the priority we should have a little pause, right? And then adapt the new change, because things are changing very fast, and change is the only permanent thing in this world, right?
Yeah,
Right now.
correct.
So we need to adapt it, and then we survive it, and then thrive it, right? So this is the ultimately three and four things which we got from your session, right? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for the
Gurdeep. Yeah.
feedback, Gurdeep ji.
Right. Right. Thank you. Okay, great. So I think there are no further questions, Jagan. But I thoroughly enjoyed the session, and I believe the audience did too. And thank you very much for sparing time and taking us through the journey of bamboo leadership today.
Yes.
So thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Varundeep. Thanks for the opportunity, and I loved the interaction from the team.
Right.
Very,
Right.
very
Thank you.
participative, and it was great.
Right.
Bye,
So
Bamboo leaders.
yeah, thank you, and look forward to host you some other time in future.